Hi, welcome back. I am Camille.
I'm Gretchen.
And we are starting over. We have a series, and this is kind of what we do. We start over on our podcast.
It's a podcast about, in case you're just joining us, it's really about taking the initiative at any moment of your day. Yep. Not your life where you're thinking like, man, a month from now I'm going to start over. It's pivoting. It's pivoting your thoughts and your feelings at any moment because that is where your power is, right?
Yes. Well, I think small, safe changes, you can change your whole life with small, safe changes. But you got to be willing to start over. And a lot of it is living in alignment. So if you don't feel like you're aligning to your highest good and your true belief system, you can start over and align yourself at any moment.
Let's talk about, Camille, how to keep yourself aligned or even to align yourself when you're in a situation where you're under somebody else's control, like, say, a boss.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of a difficult thing because it's hard to be authentic when someone holds your rice bowl, right? So can you really tell them what you're upset about? Or probably not. But it really takes skill and it takes integrity and maturity that you probably can't have it all if you align yourself with that integrity. I feel like that if you really are living in alignment and you're trusting the process and you're kind of marching to the beat of a higher drum, that if you live by that standard or that if you live by your integrity and your value system, I don't know that you're going to go wrong. And so if you're at a place of work and it's asking you to break your integrity and you feel like you're violating yourself by doing so, you probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I was thinking too, I know I've been in situations, I'm sure you have too, but you have worked for yourself for a long time. But I just know that there are times, and I just had this discussion with a loved one, that when you feel that your integrity has been violated, it's hard to stay because it's hard to accept that feeling. There's something inside ingrained in us that says, I don't like how this feels, or I deserve something better. I also know on the flip side, if this is a situation you cannot leave, this is
a little trapped,
whatever that might be for whatever reason, you just can't. You don't have the freedom to just go like, I'm out.
Peace
right?
out. Yeah.
You also can, through a series of, it takes work and effort, but changing your ideas, changing your vibration can actually change the environment, where you may not change the asshole in your job field, wherever that is, but maybe you're not around that person as much. Or maybe that person is starting to see more good in you.
And you change how you respond. So maybe you just don't let that get to you, or you change how you react to that. It's also maybe changing how you perceive it. I think if you change how you see the problem changes. So
for sure.
So it's almost like if you, and I think that we, out of any other time on the planet, we have many options. I mean, people can quit, they can leave relationships, they can leave jobs. And I'm not saying you should just bail on everything and just walk away. I learn from it, grow from it. But if there's anything you do have autonomy. You do have the autonomy to quit. And, sometimes we have this value system, I can't quit, I'm not a quitter, I've got to stay, and I've got to tolerate and suffer it through. It makes me strong,
Right.
A lot of, I think, alpha males feel this way. But maybe there's a time and a place for quitting. And maybe that takes the most courage and the most strength, because that's fearful. Like that, doesn't that scare the crap out of you?
When you don't have, sometimes everybody's like, I need to have a backup plan. And I'm certainly not saying that's not a good idea, but sometimes, the backup plan won't come until you've made that step. I always think like we're getting ready for the Olympics, and I myself was a sprinter in track. And, when you get that momentum and you're running, and let's say all of a sudden the rules were you had to stop, and instead of turning around, you had to run as fast backwards. It's not going to be the same. The momentum is shifted. It's more difficult. It's harder. But what would be easier is to turn and gain that momentum again. And I think that at times, if we feel like we are running backwards, we have to figure out what ways can I pivot and start over so that I can gain the momentum that I want and get the outcome that I want.
Yeah, good analysis. That's a really good analysis. People can see that how that would work. And I feel like people need to remember that they are in charge of themselves. We do have choices. And you also need to never deny that you have your own power. If you deny that you have any power and someone else has power over you, now you're in the victim position. You're in the victim stance. And that's not true. We always have options. We always have choices. Now, I say this, and this is a little extreme, but you could be in an airplane that's going down. You still have a choice in how your attitude's going to be going down. Okay?
Right.
So it's like, that's a pretty extreme analysis. But we have choices over ourselves, and we have control over ourselves. That's all we have control over, really.
I know sometimes we get comments from people like, easier said than done.
And that's true.
And that is true. And Camille and I both acknowledge that. However, the mindset is it's not going to work.
Right.
It's failed. It's hard. This isn't that, I don't believe in this. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that can change is when you change.
Yeah.
So if you're depending on your circumstances, your boss, your relationships to change in order for you to feel better, it's very conditional. And maybe it will last a little bit and maybe it'll never happen. But it's like you were saying, with the airplane going down, you have to find a way where you can feel good despite the conditions.
Your circumstance. Yep, that's right. Well, and I think the people, look, we get used to being victimized. We as children, so if we had some sort of bullying experience, we continue to identify with that. And so as you get older, you have to really consciously decide, I'm not going to be that ever again. So even when there's a similar experience when you're older, you don't let yourself get offended by that. You don't let yourself feel that. You don't take it on like you've been offended or you're a victim.
Yeah.
So you see it differently. It's just, thank you for sharing. I'm not going to let you do that to me. It doesn't have to upset you.
I was listening to this talk, and the expression that was suggested with anything in our life isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So you're not giving a commitment to a feeling.
Yeah.
You're just observing and letting it go like a cloud in the sky kind of floating by. And I think the real power, one thing that Camille's really good about helping people is recognize you do have power. You do have a say. Mm-hmm. Even if you're in a situation that this boss has a thumb on you and this is the way it is and you don't like it, you still have the power to feel however you want to feel.
That's right.
And that person isn't going to make you feel bad unless you allow it to. Mm-hmm. So if you find yourself in a situation or a relationship and you're like, I'm not happy, you have to find something in your life to be happy. I was not happy to have cancer, but I had to look for things that I could feel happiness about. Well,
and you weren't a victim of it. When you got the diagnosis, not one part of you said, "Oh man, I'm done." Yeah. You jumped into action, and you did not succumb to it. You chose how you were going to respond to it. It dominated you. It didn't. You didn't let it.
Yeah.
I watched you just jump into action,
And that's how we can be with anything.
Yeah.
Really, because when you recognize your own power, like your power, not the power you're waiting God to give you.
Yeah.
Not the power that you hope you're worthy enough to get, or you hope the circumstances change in order for you to be able to be strong enough to do that. You make a declaration that you decide, wait a second, I'm not going to bully somebody, but I'm going to stand and take a direction for myself and my own feelings.
Yeah.
That's dealing and gaining your own power.
I was saying this with somebody earlier. It's like the whole, what's the greatest sin of all or something like that. It was to deny the power of the Holy Spirit or something. And to me, it's denying one's own power. That's what I would say. It's when you know something, when you know you've got strength, you've got power, and you deny that, when you pretend you're powerless. That, to me, is one of the greatest, quote, sins of all, so to speak, because we're denying that we have any vote or choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. And that's not the truth. We always have a choice.
Yeah, even
see it. But.
Even there are many books that talk about prison. People that are in prison actually have a huge benefit in that they have time on their hands, so to say, to sit and think and redigest and reprogram and
relive,
decide where they are in their life as far as how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
If we stay in a situation where we beat up on ourselves or we refer to the past or I did it again or this is always happening, that no one else is being hurt except for us.
Yeah.
No one else is being hurt except for us. And we never gain the power of self-belief. We never have that courage. We never have that confidence because we're the ones talking ourselves out of it, not the peanut gallery.
That's right. That's right. Well, and again, when you choose something, choose for you first. Don't choose for someone else's benefit or well-being. You've got to choose for you because no one else is going to choose for you. And that's the most important person is you've got to decide what's the most ethical or what's the best choice for your integrity, what's the best thing for your alignment. And when you do that, I had this today. Someone said, look, this is the best direction for me in this relationship. They met somebody new. They want to go in this direction. Okay. But am I creating karma? Am I going to hurt my ex if I leave? And actually, no, if you live a lie, if you're pretending to be there and you don't want to be there, that's creating harm because you're not authentic. Honesty is what works. So speak your truth and let that person have a vote. Don't, take that from that person. Right. Be straight with them. Trust them, believe in them enough, believe in yourself enough. Life changes happen. Life's on everybody. So that you meet people newly. I could never tell that person. Well, you may need to because if not, they're going to make up something worse in their head about themselves that this is why you're leaving or something. So trust the process of living. Be true to yourself. Be true to them. Be true to, to the path. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense because if you think about it, none of us like to hold on to truth that's not being said.
Yes.
It will eventually
comes out.
Fester at some point. It just is not meant to be submerged in us.
Yeah.
The truth shall set you free. We know that expression, but really there is a lot of truth in that because we can't live and breathe and be happy, successful, and abundant in our way of living if we are suppressing our own feelings, if we're suppressing feelings about somebody else. I'm not saying unleash and be a batshit crazy person on somebody.
No.
But when you talk about being your true, authentic self, know what that feeling is. Know what it is.
Yeah.
Know what matters to you. Know what your boundaries are. And if your boundaries are set in a way that this person is crossing them, even if it is a boss, you still have
a duty to yourself.
Right to yourself.
Yeah.
Give yourself that credit to stand up for you.
Yeah.
I just was talking with one of my kids who was going through something kind of hard with an employer, and this kid of mine stood up, and basically the response, the answer wasn't what this kid of mine wanted. It was, I feel better. I feel better. It wasn't a matter of whatever the outcome. I'm not trying to convince. I'm not trying to persuade. I just need to say this because I need to stand up for me.
Yeah.
And that kid felt better.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that's the healthy thing.
Yeah. Well, and there's FOMO, fear of missing out. Well, if I say that, if I do this, I'm going to lose that. I'm going to lose this. You might, but you're losing time. You're losing your self-esteem. You're losing your integrity the longer you live a lie. Right.
That is so true because you see this every day. You get resentment.
Yeah.
You get disappointment. You know that sometimes we get in a place where we start looking for things that are not really true or not really there just because we're based on a feeling. Well, I think they're doing this, so therefore, look, I'm seeing. We just create a fantasy that maybe isn't true.
Yeah.
And as much as it is uncomfortable to confront somebody, sometimes wouldn't you want that to be reciprocated? If there was something that was off and they didn't feel right about, you'd want to talk about it.
Well, I think people want to be dealt with fairly, like be straight with me about whatever, right? Because, and I can't tell you how many times people have cheated, and they didn't find out, the other person didn't find out for a year or something. And the upset it creates, it's like they just feel, the betrayal is that they didn't get a vote on that year. They feel used for a year like that. That took a year of my life, and I wouldn't have stayed, or why, or we could have talked it out, or there's just so much that happened while that person was over there living a lie and pretending.
Right.
So, but they say, well, I can't handle it. If I said it, they would kill me. They're going to go through what they're going to go through. You have no control over that. You have control over you. But if you're the kind of person that can pretend something like that for a long period of time because you're afraid to hurt them, okay, I get it. You're hurting yourself, and you're hurting them anyway. The minute you are out of integrity with your bond, with your promise, you've breached the relationship anyway. The relationship energy is broken. So anybody with that can sense that, you can sense there's something up, something wrong. And then you say, no, everything's fine, everything's good. You lie, you pretend. Even if you don't lie, you're lying by omission. That person feels gaslit. That's upsetting. That's what's outraging. That's what pisses people off mostly, is because they feel like they've been strung along, or I knew it. I felt this. I knew something was wrong. And so they feel like they went crazy for a while.
And, and that's a terrible feeling when you're like, I should have listened to my gut.
Yeah.
I knew something was up, or, whatever it was. And so now you've got two feelings. You're mad at yourself.
Yeah.
And you're mad at that person.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of, I'm certainly not saying, hey, go tell your spouse, that you hate them or whatever. No. I'm not saying that, but I am saying, like, if you're trying, even if you're trying to work through something, that conversation alone is warranted to say, hey, I'm going through something right now. I'm having a hard time, or I'm going to need a little alone time, only because I'm trying to figure some stuff out. But I just want you to know I love you, I support you, and I just would appreciate you supporting me right now.
Yeah.
At least there's an explanation.
That I'm going through something.
Away,
At least that there is something going on. You're not crazy. And I'm, that. Yeah. So it isn't.
Validate that.
Exactly. Validate that they're not misreading something, right?
Right.
Yeah. I've got a situation right now where, this girl was almost institutionalized. She was going so crazy. I told her about a year ago, I had a sense that her husband was not faithful to her. She asked me, and I said, yeah, this is my hunch. I've been counseling you guys for a minute. And when you've got couples that one of them's just not engaging. They're just kind of like coming in and doing, going through the motions, and I just kind of had a sense that he just wasn't really into it. He was just not engaging, and I thought, he ain't talking about something. And she was just having these impressions, and, look, people know. You can't, you just have these feelings. When you're that connected to somebody, you feel things about your partner, and then you're disconnected, and you kind of sense, but when you connect back in, and then you feel like you're told, no, everything's great, and I don't know what you're thinking. You go crazy. She literally was getting medication. She thought she was losing her mind.
Wow. But the point is, when we're wrapping this up, is your gut
is talking to you.
Is that guidance that each one of us has. Yeah. Your brain's going to be different, because your brain's going to analyze, it's going to justify, it's going to figure out, maybe this, maybe that. Your gut doesn't have an option. Your gut is the truth. It is what it is.
That's right.
Pay attention to that.
Trust it.
Recognize it, and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Be authentic with your gut reaction. We appreciate y'all being here. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.